Begin by welcoming everybody to the 4/28/2020 meeting. It's Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. And let me read the following. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A-18, in the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Southwick Select Board is being conducted both at Town Hall and via remote participation by some or all members. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceeding as provided for in the order. Despite our best efforts, if we are not able to provide for real-time access via Zoom conference call platform, we will post a recording of the meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. And with that, I'd like to ask everyone to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can please stand. And I'll begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next thing I had is I was negligent last week in not recognizing that we lost a former firefighter, Phil Johnson. So if we could please at this time take and have a moment of silence for Mr. Johnson. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is public comments. This gives anyone an opportunity that is not on our agenda that would like to make a statement to the select board. This would be your opportunity to do that. If you are going to make a statement, I'd ask that you please state your name and address. Is there anyone here at this time that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll go right on to the meeting. Mr. Steinhardt, COVID-19 discussion and actions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the governor did have a daily news event today, and during that time period, he did announce a 2-week extension till May 18th. And he also put together a task force spearheaded by the Lieutenant Governor Polito with people from, Western Mass, Bay State, the business community, mayors, and other public officials to develop some sort of a strategy and a plan that will also be consistent with the abutting states. So that is underway now, and we should be getting an update by next week.
Okay, thank you. All right, upcoming election-related expenses. Was everyone able to review the letters from Michelle Hill? I see yes. Doug nodding. Joe, did you get a chance to review it?
No, but I've talked to her daily, so I'm sure I know it.
Basically, because of the COVID and because of the number of elections that we're having, the special election, May 19th for fill the Senate vacancy, state Senate vacancy, presidential primary, presidential election, and the necessary actions that we're going to have to take. And there are several bills pending that could impact how we do our elections. Michelle Hill is looking for basically in the budget an additional $20,000. Is that correct, Carl?
If I look at it right, Russ, it's about 14. Are you talking to finish the year, right? To finish the current
finish the year, it's a
14,725.
Okay.
So you can do that as a FinCom reserve, because by the time we make it to the special town meeting before the annual, which is now going to be June 16th, we'll have already gone through both elections.
Okay, and the Finance Committee still has approximately $91,000 left in their reserve. So would someone like to make a motion for a transfer from the reserve account to go to the finance committee for that $14,725.
Doug Mogul will make that motion.
Joe Didi, second.
Okay, roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul and I.
Joe Didi, aye.
Okay, passes unanimous. Carl, you'll forward that to the finance committee after we get our signature?
Yes, that's what we'll do. We will prepare that document tomorrow, and the chair will sign it based upon this vote.
Okay. All right, the next thing from Labor Council concerning the emergency responders. You want to go over that, Carl?
Yeah, that was just a clarification under the FFCRA Act, which is, the Coronavirus Act. There's two different ways to handle emergency responders where it needs to be clarified, because you could vote to exempt them where they're not allowed to be permitted, that coverage that's afforded to everyone else, or you could make the decision not to exempt them from it. And that's what Labor Council wants to get clarification in your support to do, so that they'll be treated in the same types of benefits other people would be and not exempted. And I gave you all the council's input on that stuff.
All right.
So that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, now he's saying we can't, not necessarily need to take a vote, but would you
Right,
recommend a vote?
Right, you could do one or the other. You could just, acknowledge that it's your intent for them to be not exempt from it, or you could take a formal vote, whatever you prefer. That was the way he worded it.
All right, the draft I'm reading is I hereby move to include the emergency responders as being covered by the provisions of the Family First Coronavirus Response Act.
Right.
Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. I certainly think they should be covered. I think with everything that's going on, we should recognize the first responders that have opted to date not to take advantage of that and to stay with their job and supporting the residents of the town of Southwick.
Okay, Doug Moglen made a motion. I need a second.
Joe Didi, second.
All right, roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul and I.
Joe Didi, aye.
It passes unanimous. All right, next thing I have, and I guess, Doug, you sat in on this, that emergency rental assistance through community preservation?
Well, it was a general call. There was over 500 people from around the state on the call regarding emergency rental assistance, and that may be available to people that are affected through layoffs or job loss due to the current COVID-19 situation. And one of the things that came out was that certain rental assistance is eligible under CPA. And the gentleman from the CPA, Saginaw.
Yes, Saginaw.
Yeah, he was actually on the call and talked to it. And so I did send the link back to Carl to take a look at the video as to what they were talking about. I mean, I guess when you think of CPC, you don't automatically think of rental assistance, but it would be available as a funding source subject to town meeting vote and a CPC vote, of course, under the housing category. I don't know where we would go for feedback from town residents themselves, for feedback if there's a need for this. And then the other takeaway out of that meeting was that don't reinvent the wheel. Go to somewhere that's providing this service today to others to provide this service to town residents. So whether it's Pioneer Valley or whether it's some other state organization, don't set up a bureaucracy in the town of Southwick to try to hand out rental assistance for this hopefully short-term issue, right? Leverage other bureaucracy that already exists, if you will.
Okay.
So that's just an FYI to everybody. I don't know where we stand with that, and what if we've had a call into town hall or a call from residents that are in need of this service. Right now, the other takeaway is that that there's been an abeyance of foreclosure and abeyance of people losing their property due to non-payment of rent. eviction, but that doesn't mean that those monies are no longer due. They're just put in abeyance. They will come due. So if someone has missed 2 months of rent now, when this is over at some point in time, that rent is still going to be due at some point, subject to your, whatever the lease you have with your landlord or your bank.
Right, we did send the information from the conference call, Doug, those support materials. We did forward it on to the chairperson of the Community Preservation Committee, Mr. Pratt, just so that they would know that this issue has already been discussed. And it's actually, it looks like from reading the document that Stuart gave, that conference call, that it's been done in the past in other communities historically.
Right.
So they even cited it, but there has been, no one has called our office or registered any issues with us. The more important things have been the food pantry, which we've been working with Erica Johnson on that issue to try to get more funds directed through the upcoming community development block grant.
Yep.
For next year, as well as current year funds too. So
Sure.
We're waiting to hear on that. And then I know in a previous meeting, your board had asked about small business loans. So she's also looking at that issue. And then there's additional SBA approval just came through this week with more businesses going online and applying for those dollars.
Right. From the meeting, there are some communities that have a CPA that also have a trust. So the CPA actually funds a trust and makes those funds available so that they can act in the absence of town meeting vote. In our case, we don't have that, so it would require an act of the legislative body in order to fund a CPA warrant article to get this, to do this. But it's certainly worth looking into if the need is there. If the need's not there, then okay. But at least we've done the due diligence so that if it does come in, we can move on it.
Well, I just want you to be aware, next week, I believe the Community Preservation Committee is going to be having their public hearing, and then they're going to be looking at a series of applications from different boards and committees and groups for the use of those funds. So they may only be meeting 1 or 2 more times before the timing of when our town meeting warrant has to be posted, because generally, if we were doing our normal schedule, we'd have been posting the town meeting warrant by the end of this week.
Correct.
So everything is now delayed a month, and that's fine, and the attorneys are putting together the warrant with our department heads and based upon the things that you've voted on, exclusive of the things you still need to make decisions on as part of the budget package for any potential borrowings relating to the fire station and the sewer and water projects. So the timing is getting tight, folks.
We're aware.
All right. It appears that we have a timing issue here, but it is good to know that we have another tool in the toolbox that we can look at. So why don't we keep this on the schedule so that we don't forget about it, Carl?
Yeah. Would you like Cindy to put it under old business?
Put it under old business,
Okay.
and we'll see if we get any response from the Community Preservation Commission, and also we can continue to look at what other communities are doing. All right, the next thing I have is we got a letter from Chris Pratt, Chairman of the Southwick Conservation Commission, requesting that we change the date of the local permitting program. The due date is normally May 15, 2020 to July 1st, 2020 due to the coronavirus.
And Mr. Chairman, you might want to explain to people what that program does in terms of the second sentence.
Okay, the extension will help Southwick residents for registering their docks, vessels, floats, etc. due to the coronavirus 19.
And that's for Congamon Lakes.
Correct. And we're very thankful that Mr. Moglen was able to negotiate an agreement with the town of Suffield, Connecticut, that has helped out greatly with this. So I need a motion to approve.
This is Doug Mogul. I'll make that motion.
Joe Didi, second.
Okay, roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
It passes. All right, the next is a letter from the Mass Lottery Commission concerning a Keno operation at Sonny's Convenience, 801 College Highway. If there's any objection, we need to submit a letter within 21 days of receipt of this letter. The date of the receipt is April 16th. Any discussion?
This is Doug Mogul, and that property is actively for sale right now.
Really? They just finished doing all that work to it?
I did see they just reopened,
When?
you know.
When did they open? It was closed yesterday when I went by.
I think it was open today, Joe, because they had a new, everything was open and had the gas price up and everything. So,
They must be on a coronavirus schedule.
Could be, but I did see it listed.
okay. I mean, this is, I think just about every convenience store has this. I don't see any issue.
Yeah, it's just something you acknowledge.
Okay. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is acknowledge payroll warrant number 2022 dated 4/27/2020 in amount of $218,483.13. I need a motion to approve the open session minutes dated 4/21/2020.
Did we get those minutes yet?
Yeah, they were in your meeting materials that were sent to you.
Oh, okay, I read those ones. So moved. Doug Mogul.
Joe Didi, second.
All right, roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
It passes. All right, we're going to dates to remember. I just mentioned previously the special election for state senator, which will be held on May 19, 2020. Then we have our local election on June 9th, 2020, which is a Tuesday. Then we'll have our special town meeting and our annual town meeting on June 16th, which is a Tuesday, 2020. And we need, we're going to be doing our fiscal 21 budget work session tomorrow, Wednesday, 4/29/20 at 2:30 p.m. We will have Mr. Steinhardt, we'll have the accounting department, the select board. Am I missing anybody, Carl?
No, that'll be at a minimum. And of course, Mr. Chairman, that will recognize the 9 to 10 hours of budget hearings we just had in February and March with all the different departments, including the school district, and then all the information that we've had for updated revenues. And so we're going to go through that process with those departments. And separate from us, the Finance Committee started their budget hearings last evening.
I did have a chance to talk to the chairman about an hour ago of the Finance Committee, and he told me one of the reasons why they were taking so long is they did roll call votes on every single line item. So I suggested to him that perhaps a better way of doing it is going over the line items and doing it by sections and taking a roll call vote. If any changes are made, make a roll call vote as amended for that section, and that would reduce the number of roll call votes.
Right, you could do it like with, because of our budget process is reduced to 3 or 4 sheets that show the net changes from year to year.
Right.
You could do it per category or per sheet.
Right, so he thought that was a great way to reduce it so that they would be able to finish up. So they've taken a suggestion. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. We're moving on to old business. The first thing I have here is the building inspector discussion and decision on selection. We did the interviews last week. I think someone asked that we take a week to digest. We had 3 candidates that we interviewed: Leslie Burnell, Kyle Scott, and Robert Sullivan. Discussion? Thoughts?
I think they were fine. Some need a few more years, I think, of experience to get up to speed with the town that we currently, are working with, Southwick. I asked for an extra week so I could look over things a little bit better, which I did. And I'm comfortable with what's in front of us. I think the two gentlemen are both decent. I think you have to look at, one has, I think they probably both have the same amount of experience. One's a little younger, one's a little older. One will have longer, one we won't. One's closer, one's further away. I don't know how that, works out in the end game. As you know, we have junkers. We don't have nice cars. So we'll have to figure something out with that whole world if we go that route. But yeah, they're all decent. Just depends on where we're at and where we want to go, I guess.
Yeah, you don't need to make a decision based upon their commute. A commute is a commute for.
Understood.
They won't be in the town vehicle if it's a commute longer than a few miles. So.
What are you saying, Carl? Our vehicles aren't good enough?
You wouldn't want to put any extra mileage on them than what's needed because they are hand-me-downs from the police department.
Understood. And I'm not saying that's the stickler by any means. I think, both the gentlemen were decent. They're just two different versions of the same thing. And just like us three guys are three different versions of the same thing, right? We're all selectmen and we're all different. So I think both the gentlemen are decent. It's just a matter of which way you want to go.
Well, I think we had three good candidates, but I think one kind of stood out above the other two. I think if I were to make a recommendation, I'd have to go with Kyle Scott.
I kind of agree with you, Russ. I mean, the selection committee, myself, Carl, Mr. Dougherty, Fire Chief Anderson sent forth these three survivors, if you will, from the arduous screening process. So I would like to leave it to you guys because it was the opinion of the selection committee that any one of these three would have been able to adequately serve the town. So I'm very interested to hear your opinions on those. And if you're looking for a motion for Mr. Scott, I would set forth that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
Joe Didi, I'll second that. I'm not. I guess I'm nervous, but this whole Zoom thing is just different. You know how that works. Face to face, I get a much better feeling about people, as they do of me. So yeah, I'll second that.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, Joe. It is we're blazing new ground here with the interviewing on Zoom. But okay, we have a motion made, a motion seconded. Roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
And let me just clarify that motion. Motion is to offer employment to Kyle Scott as Southwick Building Inspector / Zoning Enforcement Officer, contingent upon Corey, pre-employment physical, and contract negotiations. Is that correct, Mr. Steinhardt?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Or as we say, yada, yada, yada.
Correct. All right.
And we have to thank, while he's here, we have to thank Arthur for all of his years of service and the fine work that he's done for the town. And Art, I want to thank you personally. I know, one, you set the model for how we do these screening committees because yours was one of the first one we did this way. And secondly, you absolutely set the bar extremely, extremely high for any future building inspector in the town of Southwick.
Ditto to that, Art. A fantastic job. You're certainly going to be missed. I know you're only up in Westfield, so I hope you're going to visit often. And I hope you're going to be around a few more weeks to help us have a nice, smooth transition.
Absolutely.
We will need them for the transition. And of course, we do have potential other needs for clerks of the works for the fire station project.
Absolutely. Good idea.
And Arthur, could you leave a pair of shoes behind so I can explain to the next guy how they need to fill them properly.
Well, thanks for the kind words, gentlemen. And yes, I'll be around for the transition to help you out here.
We appreciate that, Art.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur.
It's
All right,
been
the
a
next
pleasure.
thing I have is the Southwick Fire Department Station project bid recommendation on the general contractor from Russo and Barr. Has everyone had an opportunity to read that letter?
Yeah.
Okay. They are recommending that the project be awarded to the low bidder, which was Silktown Roofing, Inc. They're out of Manchester, Connecticut. It was for a bid of $929,500. The high bid, of course, came in at $1,545,601. So, of course, as Mr. Steinhardt is going to tell us, there are additional costs to go with this. So that is not the final figure that we'll be presenting to the voters, but that is going to be the base. Is that correct, Mr. Steinhardt?
Right, as we discussed before, the engineering company has already done the design work, so that was under last year's $300,000 town meeting borrowing authorization. So within that also remains existing money for them to do the project oversight, but our other remaining costs that we'll have to add on to this project bid here would be a contingency as well as a clerk of the works, because I believe your board has seen the benefit of having a clerk of the works.
Absolutely.
So because, you know, an architectural firm and a design firm only come out once a week for project meetings. We need eyes on the ground this time because I think 20 years ago, that was not something that they did for large projects, schools and municipal projects, but now they do. So we're going to mirror as if we're required to do that, even though we're under the dollar threshold for that, but we still want to make sure that we have someone there every single day for a number of hours watching the GC. They're small dollars. Because you're gonna, as Doug says, you're gonna amortize this over, 15 or 20 years. So, by the time you're done adding this all together, it's gonna be, reasonable over that period of time. And certainly the lifespan of the work, will far exceed the note.
Okay. Would you suggest that we have a motion tonight to accept this bid tonight or to hold off until,
I think, you've been sent information regarding Silktown's work on other buildings with the exact same roofing system that we're doing, as well as down in Winstead. If anybody goes down Route 8 in Winstead, we're there. You can see the community college down there. It's got this type of a roof on it. It's a green shade. We're going to use gray on this one. So the company has the experience. I asked them specifically, and I know I sent emails to Arthur and the fire chief and buildings and grounds. So, the designer's fine with the company. They're familiar with them. So everything's in motion. But I think, it doesn't hurt to wait a week because you're going to have to deal with this as making sure that you support it through your budget process. Because eventually you're going to have a borrowing vote done by bond counsel to go to town meeting if you move forward with this. But the bids will be good until after the date of town meeting. So from a timeliness point of view, the bids will still be in play.
okay. Well, then why don't we put this on hold? We're going to be having our first budget work session tomorrow, and then we can discuss this further next week in our next meeting. Is that acceptable to the board?
Yes.
Okay. Next thing I have is the Mass DOT on the Congamon Road project. Carl, have we scheduled another meeting yet with them?
No, because you're waiting to hear back from the Public Works guys and Mark Beglander giving us advice on how to explore some of the offsetting mitigation expenses through the design company.
Okay. Next thing I had was DPW Brush Program and white goods. Joe, you've been foraging ahead with that.
Nice. Yeah, so you can now drop off at TJ Bark Mulch for the next 2 weeks. It should have been in the paper, hopefully. I know it's on the town website. So it's Monday through Saturday, I believe, 8 to 4. And after 2 weeks, we'll relook at this and see if we can bring it back home to our own DPW transfer station. And the white goods, the computer stuff is all done, so you could get your permits online. And I believe in 2 weeks, we'll look at that and see if we're going to start that process again. I know the governor just expanded a couple more weeks with openings on certain things, but let's play it by ear. And within 2 weeks, hopefully the metal goods will pick back up and the brush can get moved back to town.
Just a suggestion, maybe they could put on their sign at the transfer station where the brush can now be accepted.
Hopefully they've already done that, but I will double check tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Is that you, Doug?
I do not have a dog.
Yep, my dog's outdoors. It's not mine. Hey,
Russ, don't start sweating. Don't start sweating. Can't come through the computer.
suit of armor. Where's Russ's suit of armor?
All right, moving right along. All right, I did sign the, I'm looking for it. I signed the GAP 2 grant invoice reimbursement request that was sent to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection to cover the $40,546 gap between the work that was done on the new water pump station on Jerry Drive to replace 2 existing less efficient pump stations. So that was signed this week and sent out, again, for $40,546.
I went to DEP.
CPC application for signage. I think, has everybody had a chance to see that?
Yes.
Okay, we all understand what we're trying to achieve here. We had that work session. This would help to identify all the town parcels, conservation areas, and the rules and regulations. It would also help to work on our website and any other printed material. Is that correct, Mr. Steinhardt?
Yep. In fact, at that work session, you had was printed materials, potential kiosks, signage, and then it was also the issue relating to the updating product graphics, our webpage, so that people would be able to go online, see the various open space assets we have that could be created, the profile of the services of what they offer.
Yeah.
So that Russ signed off at a previous meeting, and that's underway. This year's existing CP.
All right, and that amount requested is $15,000 from Community Preservation.
Right, and the applicant is the Open Space Committee and the Conservation Commission, who then submitted it to the CPC. So that's going to be part of their public discussion next week on the different projects to be considered for town meeting that would be turned into standalone warrant articles and then placed on the town meeting warrant.
All right, good. Any other old business, Mr. Steinhardt?
We did have our financial advisor run different note schedules for the alum treatment, because you understand we just had that town meeting in March, and the whole purpose of it was to authorize a borrowing for $600,000. So the first payment of that will be a standalone warrant article from CPC funds. Tom Scanlon gave us some draft wording, so Laura is working it up to send it back to Tom and town council. So that will be a warrant article, but that's already been authorized by town meeting and the committee. So it's going to be more or less the housekeeping article that you'll see each year that the bond is being paid off.
Okay.
Because this is our first time doing that. So I do want to make sure that you recognize that at some point when you get a draft special and annual town meeting warrants put before you with all the different articles, that you will know that this is going to be on that and you're familiar with it.
Okay.
Carl, sorry, so you're saying if that's going to be a 20-year note or a 10-year note, this year and for the next 9 years after that, we'll have to have a housekeeping warrant article to continue to pay on an obligation that the town already voted to incur?
Yeah, because this is the appropriation that the difference between a borrowing authorization, this is the appropriation on an annual basis that pays that debt service. And you're used to seeing principal and interest line items in the budget, Doug, under the back pages.
Yep.
Yeah, this doesn't go in one of the back pages. It stands alone as an annual payment. So it'll say payment number 1 for this purpose and for these dollars.
So just to play devil's advocate for a second, isn't that kind of perilous? Because couldn't someone go to the town meeting in any one of these years and shoot down us paying an obligation to the town of Southwick?
They could do that with your annual debt repayments on the other pages.
I get it, but they'd have to take out the whole budget to do it. You know what I mean? It seems a little stranger to me. But I get it. It just seems, I guess the CPC in a sense is like an enterprise fund, like the water or the sewer, and we vote those obligations separately, right? But
Well, that's why this warrant article is requested by them and you.
okay. I'm just putting it out there that it seems strange to me on its face to vote,
No, actually,
vote to reaffirm a debt that was incurred for an obligation that we voted to incur already, that we have to, revote to basically pay the debt, which I get as part of the annual. We do that as part of our repayment schedules and debt service. We do that today, but it seems
Right, but
more interesting to have it as a singular standalone warrant article to do that.
in Tom had given me the names of other towns that do it, and I looked at their warrant articles, and that's how they do it.
Okay.
And it'll say principal and interest for year 1 for this particular project. Because, but it's not the gross amount of the original authorization, it's just the annual payment.
Oh, I get it. I mean, it's just that year's piece of it, but still.
Right.
Okay.
And anytime you do a borrowing authorization, it's the full faith and credit of the town of Southwick.
Sounds messy. It sounds like it's going to get real messy 4 or 5 years down the road when someone's aggravated. But here we go.
Here we go. All right. If we're done with that, any other old business, Mr. Steinhardt?
Nope, that's not what I had for old business.
Mr. Moglen, old business.
Nope.
Mr. Dede, old business.
No, sir.
All right, we're moving to new business. The first thing I have is retirement notice of building and grounds lead custodian. Mr. Steinhardt?
Yeah, Sandy Salmon is going to be retiring at the end of June, beginning of July, after over 20 years of service to the town of Southwick. And as you recall, about 2 months ago, you finished having Town Labor Council review and update the different job descriptions, and this was one of them, and you adopted the new job description for that position in lieu of the fact that we were anticipating the person's retirement and our need to go forward with a person to supervise all of our various custodial people in all of our municipal buildings. And that person works under Bob Johnson.
And Sandy, of course, is a wonderful person, and she's done a great job for the town of Southwick. And I'm sure that we will be able to convince her to help out in the future because we do have different floater positions. And I'm sure Sandy is the type of person where she's not going to just quit it all. That's not the type of person she is. All right. So with that, you're going to do the proper posting.
Yep.
Are you posting for the head custodian position or just a custodian position?
Oh, no, it's the full lead position, and there'll be an interview panel.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other new business, Mr. Steinhardt?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Moglen, new business?
No, sir.
Mr. Dede, new business?
No, sir.
All right. Then I guess I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, and we will talk to everybody tomorrow at 2:30 PM.
So moved.
Second,
We'll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Joe DDI.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, everybody, and